bombs started coming. And they would say to the family next door, you come with us into the bomb shelter. Come, because the bombs are going to come, they're going to kill you. No. Eventually one night, the bombing was so intense, and it went on and on and on, that the people who lived next door, who her mother had said, please don't have any contact with them because they're atheists, they don't believe in God. The bombs came and they burst into the bomb shelter and said, please, we need to be saved. They rushed into the bomb shelter and they crouched there with my mom and my mom's mom. And the bombs were raining down and they got closer and closer. Eventually they hit the house. And then, she said, the atheist started praying to God. She said to me, when the bombs come down, the atheists start to pray. It's classic. And she just has that. My mom had the spirit, and I don't know whether a lot of you know that we lost our beautiful son, our 15-and-a-half-year-old, in 2006. And my mom, I think, with her spirit and faith, really helped us through that tough time. And all of us are going to experience terrible loss. Every single one of us standing here. Maybe you haven't experienced it yet, but you will. Mom, dad, whatever it is. And that faith, it does help you. It helps you through that terrible pain. So that's what I got from my mom, the faith.
Now, your first trip to Hawaii was 1969. It was one of the greatest winters for surf, or biggest winters ever, on the North Shore of Oahu. And you were there when Greg Knoll caught the largest wave supposedly ever ridden up until maybe a few years ago. Do you have footage of that?
So many years ago, when they started to make this movie called Riding Giants, the producer at the time had heard that I had the footage, that I was there on that particular day. My dad actually was there, and we were staying in an apartment that overlooked this incredible surf that went on this sort of the biggest day of all time. And Greg had created this incredible legend around this wave that he'd ridden, and it was the biggest wave ever ridden, but no one had filmed it, and very few people had seen it. So Greg hears that I've got the footage, and hears that the producer has phoned me up to use the footage in the movie. So I get this call, Shaun, it's Greg Knoll. So I'm going, Greg Knoll, like, why is Greg Knoll phoning me, you know? I mean, Greg's from another era, and of course we know, we've seen each other around. He said, Shaun, I've got this, I heard you got this footage of me on this, I can't do a Greg Knoll accent. I heard you got this footage of me on the wave. You know, it's not like, it's just the wave. And I said, yeah. So there's like silence, and he says, how big was it? So I said, Greg, it was a monster, because it was a monster. And he said, hey, Shaun, you know, do me a favor, don't release the footage. And I said, Greg, I will honor your wishes. And I think, like, sometimes the legend is maybe more powerful than the reality. And it's not to say that the legends are beautiful. And I think that's what's great about our sport, lifestyle, art, whatever you want to call it. We've got legends, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not all covered, it's not all captured. Like, not every great wave that I rode was captured. Not every great wave that all the surfers in the audience here, not your greatest wave was on a wall somewhere, but it was in your mind. You know, like Greg had it, like, was it big? You know, but he had it in his mind. He knew what it was like, and I think that's what is special, that it's just there, and it's part of our personal myths. But to have Greg Knoll phone me up and ask me not to show it, I thought it was a classic. And every time I see him, I saw him like 3 days ago in California. I said, don't worry, Greg, your secret's safe with me.
I had to ask it. Now, you grew up in South Africa during apartheid, and you had to serve actually in National Army. Now, what was that like? You know, because you obviously had conflicting views with the government, but it was something that you were forced to do. But where did they station you as well?
You know, I grew up under the apartheid regime. You know, all know that the word apartheid means apartness. It was a word that the nationalist government coined to describe their policy of segregation and enforced separation. The Nationalist Party came into power in 1948 and were in power all the way through until South Africa became a democratic country in 1994. And for us young people that lived there, you understand and you see that you are living under an unjust system, but you're a South African and you're living there, and it's there's not a lot that you can do other than try to be as respectful as you can towards all people of whatever color. It should not matter, and it never mattered in our house. You know, there was a word that was used in South Africa that was just as bad as the N-word, and it was used very liberally, and that word was banned from our house. And that, from my first, when I started, you know, when I first conscious of language, my mother, someone used that word in our house, and she said that word will never be spoken in my house again. So my mother was very, I think, very liberal, and we also came from the English-speaking class, which was you had the English within the white group, you had the English, you had the Afrikaans, and the Afrikaans tended to be more conservative, but certainly there were some very powerful liberal thinkers in the Afrikaans community as well, and there was often friction between the Afrikaners and English. It just tended to be, most of the people in the nationalist government were Afrikaans, but I had to serve. I had to go and spend a year in the army doing my national service. I finished school at 17. I was in the army 18 for a year, and I was stationed. Luckily I was stationed. It was right across the road from the beach. It was like I was so lucky. And then because I was a sportsman, because I was a Springbok, and as a sportsman you kind of got preferential treatment. So I went to my commanding officer the one day and I said, you know, I need to be able to practice because I have a contest that's coming up. And I said, I need to go home every day at 3 and I'll be back at the base at 5. So he gave me a pass every afternoon for 2 hours, and of course I used to forge the pass and sleep at home. So I ended up having a pretty cushy run. But you know, growing up in that environment where here I am surfing on the beach and living a great life, and then there's millions of people that are having a terrible life and are being discriminated against and being victims of apartheid. There certainly was that. It was very, for a 17-year-old, it was a very conflicted time. But that was the hand that we were dealt, and that's the world that we lived under back then. And you know, I tried to do my part in many different ways to try to speed up the transition to democracy. And in South Africa, even though it took a long time, it was the most peaceful transition to democracy in the history of the world. So it wasn't the best time, it wasn't the worst time, but it was the right time. Because Nelson Mandela came out of prison in 1990. Ultimately, he was elected president in 1994, and it was a smooth transition. It was a transition that was done without any bitterness or recriminations or when you go to South Africa now, you will see, they call it the Rainbow Nation. You will see one of the most racially integrated countries in the world. Color has no meaning in South Africa. Sure, there's some very big problems with crime, and there's still big problems with disparity in income. You'll have a very, very big gap between the people that have money and the people that don't have money. But it's on the right track, and it's a testament to this great leader who was influenced by some of the great leaders in America, by J.K., by Martin Luther King, by Malcolm X. It's that connection by Mahatma Gandhi, by Indira Gandhi, by this connection of these leaders that are inspirational and are powerful. It was wonderful to be a part of that transition.
Keeping on this topic, actually, because there was also we had discussed yesterday about like you had a philosophical difference during the mid 1980s. Professional surfers like Tom Carroll and Tom Kern. Tom Carroll used to ride for you for Instinct. Actually, at the time, they decided to boycott some of the professional contests in South Africa. You took an opposing view, but you said it to me yesterday. It was really interesting why you opposed you respected them, but you opposed what they were doing. I was hoping maybe you could elaborate on that, because I thought it was a really nice point.
You see that I think there's two ways to agitate for change, and one way is sanctions and ostracism. And I know that doesn't work. It has not worked in the history of the world. Sanctions and ostracism do not make change happen. But when you bring young people together who have shared passion, these young people make stuff happen. So I've always thought that it's very important for sport to always maintain that connection. Man, bring on the North Korean soccer team to the United States. Bring in the Iranians. Just bring them here. Let them see this amazing country, and they'll go home and they'll agitate for change, and stuff will happen. But don't let them live in this crazy capsules that they're living in right now. And I've always thought that sport's a great way to bring people together. When in 1984 the United States decided to boycott the Moscow Olympics over what's happening in Afghanistan, and as far as I know, who's in Afghanistan right now? It's like, don't put sport up on that bloody altar and burn it to the ground. I think I've always felt that, and it in no way represents a condoning the vile apartheid philosophy or policy, but I've always believed that sport's a way to bring young people together, regardless of who they represent, what political persuasion they might be. It's just bring them together through sport. I'm a firm believer in that, and I still am. I haven't changed my viewpoint, and I've never been thought that a guy trying to break the 109.3 is going to be representative of any religion, political party.
All right. Can you get to the next slide, Amanda? Thank you. Busting down the door. Oh, yeah. So you were a part of a generation of dreamers, in a sense. Professional surfing didn't exist when he was growing up. There was no, I'm going to go and enter these contests and win money. There was nothing like that. Surfing was a hobby. It was something else. And you were sitting on the beach right after the Hawaiian season. You were talking to Mr. Wayne Rabbit Bartholomew, a.k.a. Bugsy Malone. And what did he say to you?
So, Rabbit Bartholomew, an Australian guy who was a great rival of mine, but a really, really good mate. And we'd had a very cool season in 1975. We'd kind of both pushed our own personal limits. We'd done well in the contests. I'd won the Pop Masters and made some finals. Rabbit had made some finals. But at Pipeline, we really pushed ourselves to the absolute maximum, because we had a whole new style and a whole new attitude. And we could see that something was going to happen. We could feel it. Now, I just finished my first year at University of Economics and the University of Natal. Rabbit had come to Hawaii I don't think he was breaking into cars or something. Rabbit had no money. He came from a very tough upbringing. But he had this dream. And this is what I like to think about what sport and passion can do. And we're on the beach together, and these huge sets, it's featured in this movie called Free Ride. These huge sets were rolling, and it was 12 to 15 feet, and no one was out. But Rabbit and I were just about to go out together and have a good go. It's what the Aussies call it, having a go. And I said to him, so, Rabbit, what you going to do? You know, it's the end of the season now, and